A suburban skyline, a local attraction, a mix of culture. How does an artist represent these? Duke Ellington's answer? Music. A Tone Parallel to Harlem is Ellington's musical ode to the New York neighborhood that he called home, a symphonic jazz composition recalling its various sights and sounds. Here we will analyze and evaluate how the composer manipulates the elements of music to convey a narrative that depicts time and place, which in this case is 20th century Harlem. We will examine three main sections: the opening introduction, the climax, and the finale. In exploring the methods and techniques that Ellington uses, I have also produced my own composition about Brisbane City. A Tone Parallel to Harlem, a symphonic jazz piece commissioned by the renowned conductor Arturo Toscanini, was originally composed in 1950 for a full symphony orchestra, with its world premiere the following year. 5 years later, in preparation for a concert featuring the work, Ellington provided the following insightful notes. We tried to picture some of the major ingredients of Harlem. A little sadness, a little gladness, and of course, there's so many good things to say about us. A lot of very handsome people who live in Harlem, endowed with great advantages. These people extremely handsome. The home of many champions. Great dancers have come from here. Well, we're bordered on the west by the Hudson River, and just on the east by the East River. On the south by the Rumba Belt, and on the north by the New York Giants. We're even represented in Congress by a minister, which brings us to the point that in spite of its tremendous reputation, which of course is varied and sundry, Harlem has more churches than cabarets. And we find ourselves along about halfway through this piece in front of a church on Easter Sunday morning, witnessing an Easter parade. A little sadness, the little gladness, a dazzling satin doll, but moving on progressively. You might well think, how does someone write music to that? Let's find out. The introduction of Harlem immediately sets a solemn and mysterious atmosphere. Right from the very first measures, a solo trumpet emerges with a commanding presence and rich timbre, drawing attention to the melodic motif, a descending minor third which intones the word Harlem. This motif recurs throughout the opening and later throughout the piece, serving as a musical signature. As the introduction progresses, the mood starts to shift again, and the atmosphere becomes more animated. Ellington writes syncopated rhythms characteristic of jazz and swing music, which infuse the orchestral textures with a sense of rhythmic vitality. Here, the brass section plays an important role, punctuating the musical phrases with accented bursts of sound. These brassy interjections add an overall energetic element to the musical fabric, reflecting the spirit and liveliness of Harlem itself. Skipping to the main body of the work, which has an organic, through-composed structure, the composer incorporates tone painting to vividly depict the essence of Harlem. Ellington's brilliant use of musical elements masterfully portrays the vibrant atmosphere of Harlem's bustling streets. The syncopated rhythms symbolize the city's lively pulse and the rhythmic interplay of its diverse community. The polyphonic textures reflect the neighborhood's constant activity. Ellington's kaleidoscopic orchestration paints a vivid sonic picture, akin to the sights and sounds one encounters in this bustling urban setting. All these immerse the listener in the energetic landscape of Harlem. Just as Ellington himself described, the piece also evokes the imagery and festive atmosphere of a parade on Easter Sunday. The constantly shifting dynamics and textures emulate the procession's lively and ever-changing nature, from tranquil moments to exhilarating bursts of excitement. Bold brass and woodwind fanfares announce the grandeur and ceremonial spirit of the event. Meanwhile, the march-like rhythmic patterns propel the music forward, conjuring synchronized footsteps of marching bands and enthusiastic participants. Again, Ellington's refined orchestration skillfully paints clear imagery of colorful floats, jubilant performers, and the collective celebration that defines such gatherings. Finally, the ending of A Tone Parallel to Harlem is a climactic culmination of the musical journey. With dense orchestration and harmonically rich progressions, all driven by that minor third motif, it creates a powerful and emotional impact. The full symphony orchestra shines, with the brass section adding brilliance, woodwinds providing intricate melodies, and strings creating a luscious backdrop. The ending captures the essence of Harlem, leaving a lasting impression of its cultural significance and vibrant spirit. It serves a poignant conclusion that resonates with the listener. All in all, Duke Ellington's A Tone Parallel to Harlem masterfully manipulates musical elements to craft an evocative, narrative-based portrait of mid-20th century Harlem. Inspired by Ellington's work, I've also ventured into my own creative realm, crafting my own jazz-based composition depicting the cultural tapestry and dynamic energy of Brisbane City, my place of residency. Following Ellington's use of musical elements such as orchestration, rhythm, and texture, I've also manipulated these same elements to emulate the unique sights and sounds of the Australian metropolis. Let me take you through the piece.
Recorded with an ensemble consisting of trumpet, saxophone, harmonica, piano, electric bass, and drums, the composition begins with a brief introductory prelude containing the melodic interval of a descending perfect fourth. This motif intones the word Brisbane, and later becomes a calling card throughout the piece. This leads to an extensive, unaccompanied piano solo, illustrating the Brisbane River in the midst of a nature-perfumed sunrise. Improvised in the ethereal-sounding Lydian mode, various devices are used. Repetitive ostinatos mimic the gentle lapping of the water. Wide-ranging arpeggios reflect the river's iridescent glimmer in the emerging sunlight. Ascending trills and tremolo recall the sound of bird calls echoing along the river banks. Loose rhythms abound, and there is no clear sense of meter, portraying the constant ebb and flow of the waterway, and gently guiding us to the next section of this two-composed piece. After a transitional passage featuring piano and harmonica, the composition proceeds with a portion depicting the vibrant sprawl of the Brisbane city streets as time approaches noon. Here, a trumpet solo takes center stage, backed by the harmonious support of the ensemble. Alternating between the Dorian and Aeolian modes, quite poignant sounding, the solo begins with a languid grace and gradually gains momentum. A musical metaphor for the city awakening and transforming into a bustling urban center. It even quotes the last post midway through, as if we're taking a contemplative stroll through Anzac Square during a ceremonial service. The rhythmic, driving drum pattern, the plodding bass line, and velvety toned piano all contribute to evoking the atmosphere of this inner city. Another piano harmonica passage transports us to the next section of the piece, a portrait of Brisbane's iconic Ekka Festival at sundown. This area of the composition features an up-tempo, virtuosic saxophone solo, lightly accompanied by the rest of the group. It incorporates various musical elements in order to encapsulate the joyous atmosphere of the agricultural show. Musically, the solo is improvised in the Mixolydian mode and uses a modified 12-bar blues format in order to emulate the raw sounds and textures of folk and popular music. Syncopated rhythms and hemiolas infuse the melody with a sort of exuberance, a drunken revelry. The call and response interplay between the solo saxophone and instrumental groupings imitates the sound of rallying crowds, crying and cheering. These elements envelop the listener in the joyous, celebratory essence of the Ekka Festival. Following this, the finale of the composition features an unusual passage where all the instrumentalists are instructed to improvise from middle C up to the highest or lowest notes of the instruments. The atonal crescendo that results from this represents entropy and the urban chaos of the city. The piece then concludes with a modified recapitulation of the opening descending fourth, adding a captivating twist that brings the musical journey to a satisfying close. Much like Duke Ellington in Harlem, in my own composition, A Brisbane Hymn, I've extensively utilized the elements of pitch, timbre, and texture to convey musical narrative that depicts the essence of a southern Australian city within a jazz-based idiom.